Welcome one more day to An Harmony. Today we are going to dive deep again into the key of conscience, but this time we have to see the magnetic quality conscience has, a quality that literally attracts the life we were born to live. And we have to realize that we need to unite mind, heart, and body and live from the center of gravity of our true essential being. And I'd like to mention that right before yesterday, during a meeting with other walkers of life, someone suggested that we should pay attention to how we feel every time someone is speaking to us or when we experience certain circumstances, to see how we feel inside. And this has much to do with what I wanted to tell this week. Notice how we usually perceive reality with mind, heart, and body at the same time. Sometimes we are very mental. Our head is full of thoughts, concepts, ideas, constant inner chatting. And other times we are overwhelmed by emotions. We cannot even think properly because these emotions are too powerful. And other times we react mechanically, blindly, without thinking, and sometimes even without feeling the emotion. We just react in a cold manner. So it's necessary to collect ourselves into a state of wholeness in which we can really perceive the mind, heart, and body at the same time. And this is actually what we see in the divine verb, for instance, which is teaching us how to manifest from the source. The divine verb is the manifestation from the holy source. And remember what I said in the previous episode. It has four main qualities which can be deduced from the first one, because love, which is the first quality, I prefer to call it amor, is amot, absence of death. And absence of death is life. And life reveals itself. This is the quality of light, conscience. And in conscience, all the opposites are neutralized. They somehow disappear in a process of unification, or don't disappear, but they become integrated. And remember that when any of these four qualities are missing, then all of them are replaced by fake qualities. For instance, when love is devoid of true light, true life, and true serenity, then is replaced by the energy of the serpent, which is the bottomless pit, the insatiable desire, wanting more and more and more. And this is not true love, but people call it love. And when there is life without amor, light, and serenity, then life becomes dark, confused, agitated, chaotic. When light is devoid of true love, true life, and true serenity, it becomes electromagnetic light, the game of lights and shadows. It becomes a split, not whole. True light, primordial light, is magnetic. That's the loving quality, magnetism. Electromagnetism already implies the split of opposites, positive, negative, and so on. Now, when there is no true serenity, then there is a false world in which we have false peace. For instance, the peace imposed by the military. And that's a false peace because it can be broken at any time. We see that constantly. And notice how the magnetism of true loving life grows as we perceive the true qualities or values that emerge in the divine verb. In the four qualities, we can perceive more qualities, and this would be beauty, honesty, humility, truth, harmonia, a true sense of harmonious justice. There are many, but these are like food for the soul, and they connect mind, body, and heart. Now, to understand this in our daily life, I suggest start considering this integration in relation to three famous virtues, which are faith, hope, and love. Many have spoken about that, especially in religion. Paul mentioned those three virtues as special. However, not everyone has the same idea about them. Many Christians speak about the message of the Messiah as love, charity, and all those things. But then they behave in a way which is contrary to the true nature of love. Therefore, we have to be very clear about what we mean when we use words such as love, hope, faith. And I suggest meditating on a little writing that I found many years ago. I started to pondering on the wisdom contained in this writing. I will leave the reference in the blog. It was written by an Armenian sage. There are several versions, but I'll present the one which to me makes more sense, and you will deduce on your own why I'm saying this. Now, the message of that writing is basically the following. The faith of conscience is freedom. The faith of the emotion is a slavery. The faith of the body is a stupidity. The love of conscience generates the same in response. The love of the emotions generates the opposite in response. The love of the body is based on type and polarity. The hope of conscience is strength. The hope of the emotions is weakness, cowardice. The hope of the body is disease. And I was many years meditating on these words, realizing they are full of understanding. For instance, faith of conscience is definitely freedom, because we are not depending on something which is not safe, which is not true. We know and understand that the truth that comes from the inside is a solid rock. The solid rock on which we must build our house, as the master said. And that solid rock used to be known as Atzur in Hebrew, and is related to emunah, faith in Hebrew. But emunah implies having full understanding, not just an intuition, a little wisdom. And understanding implies action. And that's precisely what we see, for instance, in passages such as Job 28:28. Wisdom is the reverential awe of the divine being, not the fear of the Lord, as it's usually translated. And understanding is stepping aside from evil. There we have the union of wisdom and understanding, which make us act accordingly. And this is based on true faith, true confidence, on the solid rock of reality, which is basically our true being. We are not just isolated little beings, but are part of a collective manifestation of the divine. And that's our truth. And this implies realizing that we are in a false world. Everything here is not stable. This is why we speak of the faith of the emotions, which to me is not faith but blind belief. And the faith of the emotions implies having doubt. Actually, people that believes emotionally, blindly, always have the sense, subconsciously or unconsciously, that what they are believing might not be true. they are not fully sure. And this is very common in politics, in science, in religion especially. Besides, emotional belief implies accepting what others tell us. It's not based on understanding. People accept ideas, things that are seen as facts. Even scientists accept emotionally many things that are just theories. However, scientists make people believe that they somehow test everything in a laboratory. That's not true. There are many mathematical constructs, theories, models upon which other theories are built. And this is the problem. They just believe that if they have a result, that has to be true, but that's not necessarily the case. In other words, just because a mathematical model can help people build nuclear plants doesn't mean that mathematical model is true. It just gives results. So in this sense, even science is a form of religion. Actually, during the French Revolution in the 18th century, reason was seen as a goddess, the goddess reason, and they built up a new religion based on supposedly rational theories. In my opinion, this is what gave rise to the society we are living today. The blind belief of religion is governing more than we think today. Now, the faith of the body is a stupidity. And this is very much related to what I said, because if we just rely on what we see, on the so-called physicality, then we are fooled, because the essence of reality is not physical, is not based on particles, it's not based on mathematical interactions. Those are just constructs of the mind, fragmentations that took place when the universe fell. And everything that we perceive through the senses is a delusion. Moreover, we cannot just rely on the body alone, because the life that is in the body is not physical in itself. It comes from a source in which matter and spirit are one. There is no division of any kind. And therefore, there is no split of the atom. Some say that the split of the atom was the split of Adam. And in a sense, that makes sense, even though Adam was the human soul. But it's somehow related. The Egyptians spoke of Atum, which came from Tum, and that's related to the beat of reality, tum, 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 tum. All those patterns generated a fractal reality where we see this electromagnetic light that is constantly deceiving us, because we are not what we see. This is like a cosmic disco. Everyone is dancing to the movements of the serpent, and almost no one is realizing that there is an essence of love which is still, it does not move, and there is a light which is completely magnetic and fulfilling. And in conscious love, the love of conscience, we experience magnetic light, and therefore we can attract the conditions and even generate the same response in others. And let's realize that true conscious love is the willful wish for the happiness of others and the willful wish for their development so they reach maximum perfection in tune with the Holy Source and the whole cosmos. That's basically the essence of conscious love. And when we are really able to feel that, then we can also activate the heart of those who perceive it, if they have that same loving essence. Obviously, if we are in front of a psychopath, it doesn't matter how much we love, the psychopath is not going to feel anything, even though a psychopath can generate fake emotions, can fake love and joy, but only with selfish interests. Now, on the contrary, the love of the emotions is mechanical, is one-sided, is not based on understanding fully with the mind, heart, and body as conscious love. The love of the emotions is based on possessiveness, and it can also generate lust, attachment, and when the expectations are not met, then it becomes hate. This is why emotional love generates the opposite. As for the love of the body, it's just based on the laws of electrochemical attraction, electromagnetism. People like each other because they have some affinity, maybe biological affinity or emotional affinity, mental affinity, even spiritual affinity if the souls are matching. Otherwise, there is a clash. I don't know if you have noticed that sometimes when we meet certain people and we begin to interact by speaking or listening, there might be something inside which is saying something is wrong. There is some sort of friction. And if we are aware of that, we can cancel it. In other words, we can love a person even though our body is somehow rejecting that person. And we can literally harmonize our presence with conscious love. As the Master said, if you just love those who love you, what's the value of that? That's why conscious love is so important, and it implies using the will that we have been given. Now, in the third place, we have hope. And the hope of conscience is a strength. Because when we are hoping consciously, we are not just waiting for something that will come in the future. We are rather waiting for something that we know and understand that is present but has to manifest as we open ourselves, as we remove all the obstacles, all the fears, all the negative thoughts, all the negative emotions that are keeping that abundance from manifesting. As Master said, ask and you shall receive. This is the meaning of vibrating in the name of the divine verb. It literally saves us from conditions of scarcity, disease, because it manifests what corresponds to our true being. Actually, we came here with the mission to perform, and the conditions necessary for that have to manifest as long as we are in tune with our true being. Now, the hope of the emotion is weakness, slavery, because emotional hope waits for something that supposedly we don't have. This is why people pray constantly to God, to the angels, even to the Holy Spirit. They even ask others to pray for them. That's very typical in the Christian world. And this is based on a sense of lack, on a sense of scarcity. And this is why they manifest more scarcity, because they are somehow applying the law that the Master was telling. Ask and you shall receive. If you vibrate in a state of scarcity, you receive more scarcity. And this is precisely the reason why people in the religious world and also in politics and other scopes of culture become very dependent, not only on material conditions and on a separate God, but also on false guides, pastors, priests. The very same word pastor indicates that the others are sheep. Notice how sheep are used for giving wool, milk, and meat. And that has nothing to do with our true divine condition. So as you can see, religion is based on witchcraft by means of concepts, as I already said in other videos. But this is also acting in politics. And this witchcraft cancels the access to the divine conscience, which was given to us so we can perceive the abundance and find inner guidance. And it also cancels the will that the Holy One gave us. Notice how the most precious gift that the Holy One gave us was his will to be manifested with all loving life and his conscience. There is no other, there is only one. So it's not clever to regard ourselves as sheep. Now in the third place we have that the hope of the body is disease. And this has to do with leaving things for tomorrow. There is a proverb which says, "Do not live for tomorrow what you have to do today." I would even emphasize this, saying, do not live for tomorrow what you must do now, right now. Because true action always takes place here and now. We can see this on several levels. For instance, in the way we eat, what we eat, how we eat. We are in a society in which most of the food we eat is contaminated, is poisoned, is modified. Our bodies are filled with toxins. Even all the starch and other antiphysiological foods that we eat are generating too much mucus, and this is generated congestion on many levels. There are foods which do not belong to the human being, even though nutrition experts say they are nutritious, but they are not nutritious. We are used to eat proteins, fats, starches, but there is no scientific proof that the body really needs all that. Anyway, we can find intelligent ways of eating. For instance, if someone says, I must stop eating cookies, which are not natural, or I must stop eating potato chips, which are not natural either, the act of saying I have to is the best way of postponing, of keeping ourselves from doing what we have to do. So we have to find a way to act right now. For instance, instead of eating chocolate cookies, which are addictive, especially because chocolate has a stimulating effect, we can replace it with toast, crunchy bread with honey, for instance. One of the tricks I use is slicing 4 or 5 apples. I put them in boiling water, I switch off the fire and leave it cooking. Then I have both the juice of the apple and then the cooked apple on which I put honey, and I have for several days. And if some hours after the lunch I fancy something sweet, I just have to go to the fridge and eat 2 or 3 spoons of cooked apple with honey, and that stops the craving. And that's because simple sugars are one of the most important elements in the body. But all in moderation, of course, because loading the body with food decreases the levels of vitality, because it makes digestion much heavier. And it's also important not to mix fruit with other types of food, so there is no fermentation. It's also useful to eat green salad when we are eating acidic foods, because the chlorophyll neutralizes the acids, and that makes us feel much better, much more energized, and this can be applied on the spot. Obviously, that implies some understanding and investigation, but of course this does not mean that in a particular special occasion we cannot eat a few chocolate cookies or a piece of cake if someone offers it. But I wouldn't eat that on a regular basis. By experience I know that I feel much more energized when I don't eat those things. Now there are people who maybe don't eat extremely healthy, but somehow they are healthy because they are in tune with their life mission. And this brings a joy that somehow heals the body. So even more important is to be in tune with our life mission, especially if we have a strong divine connection, or if you are an old soul. Many of us have souls that have been going around through different existences, not even on this earth, but on other planes as well. And it happens that when we try to work in something that is not related to our life mission, we get sad, we get depressed, and sooner or later we end up in a health crisis, as it happened to me. Some people don't care. They can be working on a gas station or any company as long as they are earning money, but maybe they are young souls, or they are hijacked by the adversary and they are used as puppets. But if you are listening to this, it means you have a light which is telling you to listen and find your true vital path. It is true that sometimes it's necessary to gather some money, especially when we are young, to work in some place to collect some money and do something that is of interest to us. I used to do that in the past. I work in things that I didn't like very much. I earned some money, I traveled, I gained experience, and I accessed some education, and that was useful, but I cannot do that anymore. My soul came to tell me, you either do what you came here to do, or you will die of spiritual starvation, so to say. Therefore, this is very important. And we cannot do what we have to do if we are not fully awake in the mind, heart, and body. Our actions, feelings, and thoughts have to be very in tune with our true being, all of which implies understanding. And precisely when we vibrate in accord to our true being, the magnetism of the true heart attracts the circumstances that we need in order to fulfill our mission. This is translated in terms of people that we have to meet, knowledge that we have to understand, actions that we have to perform, places in which have to be on a particular time. There are many factors involved, but we have to allow ourselves to flow. This is not something to be calculated, even though there are methods of calculation. I use them, for instance, in counseling people, but I use my intuition a lot, so it's not a matter of mathematical spirituality, as some would call it. Now, for today, I think it's enough. Thank you very much for listening. If you find inspiration in this video and you like the channel, support it with thumbs up, comments if you wish. Below I leave some links to the web, blogs, etc. And until the next time, let's keep flowing with unconditional love and modified life, integral magnetic conscience, and blissful serenity.